decades, one of the most legendary names in automobiles. Now, a new model is hitting the streets. 1.25 tons of high-performance sports car, engineered with the precision of a spacecraft. The fastest, most powerful production car Ferrari has ever designed. And this is where it's being made. Inside Ferrari's ultimate factory. High-end sports cars. They're fast, luxurious, and very, very expensive. Each has its own claim to fame. But one has become an icon, Ferrari. To some, it's a car. To others, it's a work of art. To many, it's the perfect fusion of both. The name Ferrari conjures high performance and breathtaking design. Few cars have carried such an aura of legend and mystique through the decades. The Ferrari of the Formula One track. The winningest name in the history of the sport. The Ferrari of the open road. An iconic sports car of the ages. Whether for the racetrack or for the road, every Ferrari is handcrafted. Northern Italy, the town of Maranello. This is the site of Ferrari's ultimate factory. Part high-tech garage, part art studio. A place where raw metal is transformed into raw power. And where cars are created like sculptures. Its buildings are every bit as sleek and modern as the cars created here. Because Ferrari makes cars for the street and for the racetrack, the factory boasts some unique features. A wind tunnel for research and development designed by Italy's super architect, Renzo Piano. And engine works flooded by natural light, with trees to provide exactly the right humidity for engine construction. Even a 2-mile private racetrack, used to trial Ferrari's latest race cars and road test its sports cars. These are the buildings through which every Ferrari makes its first journey. And for 3,000 workers along the way, being here is an Italian dream.
For us Italians, Ferrari has always been a myth. Always. I mean, the boys here grow up with Ferrari in them.
Few outsiders and even fewer cameras are ever allowed into Ferrari's factory. Security is intense. For Ferrari's Formula One team that's based at the factory, there's the ever-present threat of industrial espionage. And Ferrari's Formula One secrets go straight into its street cars. This is the fastest and most powerful production car Ferrari has ever designed, the Fiorano 599. Its speed tops 200 miles per hour, and its price? Over $260,000. Ferrari's president, Luca di Montezemolo.
For me, this kind of cars means freedom, braking, acceleration, handling, engine, music, all these ingredients make Ferrari something unique.
5 years of research and development have gone into Ferrari's newest model. So have 60 years of history. Ferrari's legendary founder, Enzo Ferrari, was a racing purist. To him, Ferrari's street cars were just a way to help fund his Formula One team. Early Ferrari sports cars may have been beautiful to look at, but they were notoriously hard to drive. Their racing characteristics weren't suited to the open road. But over the decades, Ferrari has moved closer and closer to designing a sports car that puts all the company's Formula One experience into the ultimate street machine. The Fiorano 599 is that car. Ferrari's designers and workers face a daunting challenge. Build a car with the soul and speed of a Formula One racer, but that handles smooth as silk on real-world streets. Make it beautiful, befitting the Ferrari legacy of art and motion. And dress it in luxury worthy of its $260,000 price tag. Race car, street car, work of art, luxury item. A tall order for the team at Ferrari's Maranello factory. It's a vast complex, 45 buildings, with enough space to fit 50 football fields. In all, 8 separate sections of the factory will build the 599 from scratch. From the fires of the foundry to the beauty of the body shop, from the robotic precision of the engine works and the paint shop to the handcrafting of the 599's leather upholstery and the final assembly line where it all comes together. The factory's first challenge, giving the 599 its signature trait, speed. The 599 boasts a V12 engine putting out 620 horsepower. And the foundry is where that key component begins its life. Here, Ferrari's metal workers have to cast the 2 core elements of the engine: the cylinder head and the engine block. Most factories mass-produce these parts, but Ferrari turns them out one at a time. A separate mold is made for every single engine. They're made out of compacted sand and resin. Other car companies use sand casts. But at high-end factories like Ferrari, workers finish the sand molds by hand. It takes around 5 hours to hand finish the molds for a single V12 engine. They're fitted together like an intricate 3-dimensional jigsaw to minimize the chance of chips, cracks, or flaws. This will be cast into the cylinder head of a 599. A flaming torch blackens the sand model with a thin layer of carbon. The carbon layer acts as a lubricant to let the molten metal flow smoothly into the spaces of the cast. It's time. The molds are ready. The molten metal is prepared just as carefully as the sand molds.
In the melting process, obviously there can't be any mistakes. It has to be of the highest quality to be able to sustain a car that goes over 200 miles per hour.
At temperatures of over 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit, the heart of the 599 engine begins its fiery birth. this is what they're going to build. This is where it starts. In the Ferrari foundry, the main furnace is fired up. The metal that will be cast into the core of the 599's mighty engine is being melted. Some of the raw metal being fed into the furnace comes from previously cast components that have failed Ferrari's quality checks. The metal melts almost instantly as massive electrical charges are fired through it. Melting the 2 tons of metal in the furnace uses enough electricity in 1 day to light a house for a year. The raw molten metal pours into a giant crucible for further purifying. At 1300 degrees, it looks like liquid silver. But this is a super strong, super secret aluminum alloy, specifically created for Ferrari's engines. Nitrogen pumps through the metal in the crucible, combining with any impurities which float to the surface. The pure alloy is transferred to smaller holding tanks, from which the engine components will be cast. This mold of compacted sand is about to become the cylinder head of one of the most powerful production car engines ever made. The metal gushes into the mold. There's a casting here every 10 minutes. Incredibly, only 1 in every 50 components fails its quality test and is sent back to the scrap heap. While the foundry casts the Ferrari's V12 heart, in another building, workers fashion its body. Like many high-end sports car makers, Ferrari's body shop is part art studio. But while the 599 may be Ferrari's latest artwork, it's also a masterpiece of aerodynamic engineering. Thousands of hours have gone into designing a sports car that's not only beautiful, but can cheat the air almost as well as Ferrari's Formula One race cars. In essence, the 599's body shape is the opposite of an aircraft wing. At high speed, its streamlined body creates negative lift, using the airflow over and through it to press the car to the road. At its top speed of over 200 miles an hour, that downforce is equivalent to a 400-pound weight. The downforce means more secure road handling and far better traction out of corners. The Ferrari streamlined body needs strong support. If you want to put a Formula One race car on the street, you need a chassis that can take the stresses of high speed and high performance. Made entirely of aluminum alloy, the 599's chassis must be strong enough to do 3 things: withstand high-speed impacts, anchor the 500-pound V12 engine, which produces a tremendous amount of torque and power. The chassis also has to provide a strong mount for the wheel assembly and suspension. At high speeds, the wheels of a sports car go up and down like a jackhammer. So Ferrari equipped the 599's chassis with super tough suspension mounts. Regular cars' chassis are put together by machines, but high-performance sports cars like the 599 are hand-welded. It means the chassis can be more exactly shaped, and the body panels more precisely fitted. With the 599's chassis now welded, and the first of its body panels attached, it's time for one of the factory's robots to take over. It's basically a gigantic stapler. The robot is programmed to precisely drive 180 rivets at specific points over the entire chassis. The rivets give the car the muscle to hold itself together at 200+ miles an hour. But the chassis can't move down the line before it passes a rigorous test. Another robot comes into play, equipped with needle-like probes. The probes test the chassis in 800 different places. At each point, they touch the metal. They're measuring the body against a computer model, searching for tiny cracks in the metal or any flaw in the chassis' overall shape. If a flaw is detected, the chassis is sent back, but that only happens to 1 in every 100. After an exhaustive examination, the robot arms raise for the last time. The 599's metal skeleton is now ready to receive the rest of its sculpted body panels. Back in the foundry, the engine casts are complete. Seven minutes later, the casts have cooled enough for the sand molds to be removed. There's nothing too high-tech about this process. The compressed sand is just shaken off the solidified metal. The high-performance specs of the 599 require engine parts that are perfect. Powerful X-rays scan the cast components, looking for microscopic cracks or flaws in the metal. The slightest vibration from a defect in the finished engine will be magnified at high speed. Worst case scenario, the engine itself could fail. Components that pass the X-ray test are hand-finished. Then they're checked again. It's no surprise that Ferrari foundry workers feel they're making more than just an engine.
We create the soul, and then someone else adds the organs to make it live.
In the body shop, metal is becoming art as the 599 sleek outer shell meets its chassis.
When anyone thinks of a Ferrari, you think of two things in particular. One, the motor, immense power, the sound, the growl of it. And second, the external beauty of the Ferrari.
Like its chassis, the Ferrari's body panels are aluminum. It may be the most powerful production car the company's ever made, but its fully aluminum construction means it's also one of the lightest. The 599 has more power, propelling less car. Workers fix the doors, hood, and trunk to their precision hinges and align them to within 1/1000th of an inch. From this point on, it's all about art, creating a finished body that's as close to flawless as possible. The body shop specialists check for trouble spots, dents or flaws, no matter how small. To Ferrari people, this is no longer a car, it's a sculpture. In a sealed plexiglass room where no speck of dust can interfere with its final inspection, the 599 is given the thumbs up to move out of the body shop.
We have to guarantee the perfect shape, the unique finishing, consequently, the perfect paint job.
This aluminum artwork is now on track for the perfect finish. The workers of the foundry and the body shop have done their jobs. The 599 sole has been smelted from raw metal. Its body assembled with precision. But there's still a lot of mechanical magic to be spun at this ultimate factory before body and soul can come together. At Ferrari's Maranello factory in northern Italy, the unfinished Fiorano 599 takes its next step towards the finish line. This is Ferrari's 21st century paint shop, one of the most advanced of its kind in any car factory. The environment is a high priority for this paint shop. Most materials are water-based, and nearly all waste is captured and recycled. Formula One racers don't have to worry about rust, but the 599 is built for the streets. Before they can be painted, every 599 car body receives an anti-corrosion treatment. Ferrari claims it's the most advanced rust-proofing in the world. A claim that's hard to test because the chemical process going on here is a trade secret. The one-ton bodies are plunged, tipped, and shaken. Every one of these giant baths chemically alters the metal of the car's body, creating a super-thin armor against the elements. These anti-corrosion baths also give the 599's body a positive electrical charge. That's vital for the next stage of the painting process. At the end of this tunnel lies the real work of the paint shop. A glass-walled, hermetically sealed place populated by graceful robots and their human controllers. The chambers are sealed to avoid any air drafts that might cause the tiny particles of primer and paint to drift and create an uneven finish. This first coat is primer, a special compound that binds the actual paint to the body. The primer is a fine dust, as fine as talcum powder. It sticks to the body because of the electrical charge the metal was given earlier. The body glides into a giant oven, which bakes the primer, fusing it onto the metal and providing the foundation layer for the Ferrari's final paint finish. Every stage of a Ferrari's construction is about beauty and power. The 599's V12 engine is that power. It's created here in Ferrari's engine works. The engine blocks and cylinder heads cast in the foundry are now fine-tuned to an almost microscopic degree. Other workers turn out the rest of the engine's 800 parts. Ferrari's engine works is an architectural triumph. Natural light floods in through a glass roof. It's environmentally efficient and provides better light for workers. The trees growing indoors are a feature found in no other car factory in the world. These trees help maintain the ideal humidity and air quality levels for engine construction. They're also here to ensure the workers' comfort. This factory is rated as one of the best places to work in Italy. All through the engine works, Ferrari's metal workers are machining the most detailed components of the V12 engine. This tiny valve is only one of the 599 engine's 800 components. It alone takes nearly an hour to make. But while the emphasis is on handcrafting, there are two very special robots in the engine works. The first is a robot they call Romeo and Juliet. These two arms are Romeo, giving Juliet a ring. But this is no ordinary ring. The ring is actually the valve seat in the engine cylinder. It forms a seal through which the valve moves and allows air into the chamber, where it mixes with the fuel and explodes. With the valve moving in and out thousands of times a second, the valve seat must be tight, immovable in fact. If it came loose, it could enter the engine and cause complete failure. Romeo dips each valve ring into a bath of liquid nitrogen, freezing it to minus 300 degrees and shrinking it by a tiny amount. Juliet holds the cylinder head while Romeo sets the valve ring in place. In the following few seconds, the frozen ring warms and expands. It's now locked in place. The second of the Engine Works 2 robots has to fine-tune another critical component, the crankshaft. The power generated by the 599's engine is transferred through the crankshaft to the transmission, to the drive shaft, to the wheels, and then to the open road. When it's spinning at over 8,000 RPM, any imperfections will cause the crankshaft to become unbalanced and create potentially destructive vibrations through the entire engine. The robot drills, shaves, and grinds the crankshaft, making it perfectly balanced. Separate components being made, fine-tuned, and checked all through the Engine Works. From its birth from molten metal in the foundry, the 599's engine is about to be assembled into its final form. While the Engine Works builds the power, the paint shop adds the beauty Ferrari is famous for. Now, the final coats of paint are applied. Unlike the primer, the paint is liquid. Tiny droplets spin out from the tips of these robot arms. Their movements have been precisely programmed in computer models. The robots apply exactly the right amount of paint to achieve a perfectly even surface. After the paint comes an ultra-tough clear ceramic layer. The clear ceramic coat provides extreme scratch resistance. Something you want when you're spending $250,000 on your car. Though 12 colors are standard, 599 owners can order the car in any color they choose. The bodies are polished to a surface as smooth as window glass. But before a single Ferrari leaves the paint shop, each one has to pass a rigorous final quality check. The slightest surface flaws in the paintwork are polished and rechecked. The paint depth is measured ultrasonically to within 1,000th of a millimeter to achieve an evenness of finish and color. If an imperfection can't be polished away, the body is sent back down the line to be repainted. Robots finish the paint job, but a man will assemble the engine. Each engine is built by one man, by hand. Putting together the 800 precision components is one of the most skilled jobs at the Ferrari factory. The engine mechanic fits the massive engine block with the pistons that will turn explosive energy into propulsive force. Then he puts the most critical piece of all into the engine block, the crankshaft. The remainder of the engine takes shape as the hours spin by. Day after work began, the engine is finished. From fire and raw metal, this has been made. The workers in Ferrari's paint shop and engine works have done their jobs. Now, the beauty and the brute strength are about to come together. In the ultimate factory, the 599 is approaching the finish line. Ferrari's Maranello factory has given the newly designed 599 its powerful heart and its beautiful body. Two challenges met, but that power will have to be harnessed, and that body kept on the road if this heir to a Formula One racer is to perform on the street. Meeting that challenge is the job of the final assembly line. On regular assembly lines, the car being made never stops moving. A Ferrari stops 32 separate times during its final assembly. At the top of the line, the 599's biggest, heaviest, most crucial component finally meets the body it will propel at speeds of over 200 miles an hour. The V12 engine alone accounts for a fifth of the 599's total weight. The engine has to be bolted to the chassis and wired up. The engine is in, but that's only half the job. They've still got to fit the 599's transmission system, made up of its gearbox and massive drive shaft, already bolted together. The engine creates the power, 620 horsepower. All that power is transferred by the drive shaft through the gearbox to the 599's axles and wheels. The drive shaft is one of the 599's only components that's made of steel. It has to be to handle the power surging through it from the engine. That power is controlled by the 599's racing-bred gear system. This extraordinary power management allows a Ferrari to accelerate through all its gears and be moving at over 120 miles an hour in 11 seconds. But only if the factory workers get it right. On the assembly line, they finish mounting the 599's engine and transmission system. It's not enough for a sports car to go fast. It has to stay on the road. The suspension system in high-performance vehicles like the 599 is far more important than it is in a normal car. The 599 suspension uses revolutionary shock absorbers developed in the US. While conventional shock absorbers are oil-filled, the shock absorbers used in the 599 contain a magnetically charged fluid. Put simply, it's like two opposing magnets, reading and reacting to every bump in the road far more precisely instantly than oil-filled shock absorbers. Installing the shock absorbers is a critical and painstaking step in the 599's final assembly. But Ferrari's mechanics mount this key component in under an hour. The Maranello factory has given the 599 speed, beauty, and handling for the street. But there's still one challenge left to meet: luxury. That's the job of the Coachworks, where the 599 gets its luxurious leather interior, each piece individually handcrafted. A highly trained team of seamstresses draws on a centuries-old Italian tradition of fine leather work.
I've been here 7 years sewing. I've never learned enough. There's always something more to learn. You need to be very precise.
Specially selected cowhides are transformed into the Ferrari's upholstery, dashboard, and trim. This is the Coachworks concession to the 21st century. A computer-controlled marking system to avoid even minute imperfections in the leather. Ferrari's customers are paying handsomely for perfection. A laser beam directed by the computer cuts the sections precisely. Beyond this stage, though, it's all human skill, needle and thread, creating the unique interiors in all the colors of the rainbow, and then some. If money's no object, Ferrari will dye the leather of your 599 any color you want. The same with the stitching.
There are 12 different leather colors that we can offer our clients for the interiors of their cars. But on demand, we have an infinite range of colors.
The leather is the same as that used in some of Europe's finest leather furniture. Ferrari will even create matching luggage in the same leather. Everything is sewn, stretched, and applied with the same meticulous care. From this roll bar to these dashboards. It takes an average of 30 hours to cut, sew, and assemble a single Ferrari's leather interior.
It's pride, because I go out and I see a Ferrari and I always stop and look and I say, hey, maybe I sewed the leather in that one.
Each time we finish a piece, the satisfaction is huge because it's a totally manual job that creates something from nothing. And seeing that something is one of the most prestigious cars in the world is a great satisfaction for everyone.
The final pieces in this $250,000 jigsaw puzzle are being put in place. The computer-controlled instrumentation inside a 599 is almost identical to that in the cockpit of Ferrari's Formula One racers. The car's computer monitors all its electronic systems, everything from the heaters in the seats to the all-important traction control system. The traction control system processes data coming from sensors on the 599's wheels, then modifies the car's handling to give the driver more control in any situation. In wet conditions, the system slows the speed of gear changes to avoid skidding. The 599's wheels are made of aluminum alloy, incredibly light and incredibly strong. Thanks to its racing heritage, the 599's tires have a footprint twice as wide as irregular cars. More rubber on the road means there's more grip for acceleration and cornering. The 599's windshield is precision curved to maintain the car's aerodynamic profile. Final checks are done on every part of the car. And only then is the 599 declared ready to receive its badge of honor, Ferrari's prancing horse. But despite all the care and all the pride that has gone into its construction, the finished 599 must prove itself road ready. And in Ferrari's terms, road ready is as close as you can get to race ready. This is where the 599 will face its final challenge, the ultimate factory's own racetrack. Ferrari's workers have done everything they can, building the 599 from raw metal to finished sports car. But everyone has to pass a final test. This is Ferrari's racetrack at Maranello. It's the ultimate factory's ultimate proving ground. This is where Ferrari tests its legendary Formula One cars. And this is where new 599s are tested to see whether their performance matches Ferrari's promises. The company has 15 highly trained test drivers. Each one uses his skill and experience to judge whether the car meets its performance benchmarks or not. High on the list of critical checks is the 599's traction control system. Tiny sensors mounted behind the wheels feed data to the car's computer, adjusting its handling from one split second to the next. On the racetrack, the test driver first checks the 599 with its traction control turned off. Then it performs the same maneuvers with the traction control system engaged. For a normal driver, this enhanced handling could be the difference between maintaining control or losing the car. But despite its Formula One pedigree, the 599's not bred for the racetrack. So in the hills above the Ferrari factory, each one's put through a second road test. The 599's suspension and handling are tested in a real-world environment. So is its 1/10 of a second gear shift system. Each gear change means a virtually instant shift in the power reaching the wheels. If the gear system is even a fraction of a second out, the rear wheels could lock, sending the car into a high-speed slide. That could be deadly on the open road. The test drivers push the 599 to its limits, continually checking the computer instrumentation, constantly matching the car's promised performance against its actual performance. With its V12 heart pumping as it never has before, and its aerodynamic body cutting the Italian air, these newest Ferraris are now free of the factory, on their way to owners who've waited 2 years for their prize. In all, it's taken nearly 2 months to create this fusion of power and art. Each section, each worker was part of a team that brought the Fiorano 599 into existence. Day by day, part by part, process by process, the ultimate factory